As the protests have swept across the country over the past few weeks, Fox News has had a number of takes that I take issue with. Tucker Carlson has been really just falling apart. I want to show you two videos, and I want you to see what he is teaching his audience about what they're witnessing in this moment.
What is this about? Even the outlines are blurry at this point, but we know this. No matter what they tell you, it has very little to do with Black lives, if only it did. If Democratic leaders cared about saving the lives of Black people, and they should, they wouldn't ignore the murder of thousands of young Black men in their cities every year. They wouldn't put abortion clinics in Black neighborhoods. They would instead do their very best to improve the public schools and to encourage intact families, which we know beyond a shadow of a doubt is central to the life prospects of children. This may be a lot of things, this moment we're living through, but it is definitely not about Black lives. And remember that when they come for you, and at this rate, they will.
So that's Tucker Carlson. I would say indisputably the most high-profile racist in America right now, certainly has the largest audience. Like, Sean Hannity has all of his issues, and I have no doubt he's a racist, but he prioritizes it a lot less. He's more of just a out-and-out Trump bootlicker. Tucker Carlson says, "What is this about?" And you'll notice he doesn't say, "To find out, we bring on BLM activists, whoever." No, he tells you what it's about. You don't have to listen to any of what these protesters are saying. I'm going to tell you what it's about, and it's not about Black lives. In fact, it's about violence against you. They're coming for you. That's what he tells his audience.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, I've had to watch and listen to a lot of Tucker Carlson over the years. And this guy is, like you said, one of the most out-and-out racists that is in mainstream media right now. And on top of Fox, he's got the Daily Caller, which acts as an extension of his reach. And this is just par for the course for him. And this isn't even like the most offensive thing I've heard from him.
No.
When I was going through the Bubba the Love Sponge tapes, like the Shock Jock show that he would just call into for years, just blatant, horrific racism, tons of like racist tropes and mocking civil rights leaders and doing like really offensive impressions, calling and they're not Black, but people of color, semi-literate primitive monkeys, just blatant, just offensive racism. And he just doesn't care because it doesn't matter to him. This is like Tucker is a white nationalist. Madeline Peltz at Media Matters has tracked this descent that he's had from just standard pundit to white nationalist. He's platformed white nationalists on his show. This is what he believes. I mean, Tucker Carlson is a racist. This isn't like a bold claim. It is what it is. You look at the transcripts, you look at what he said, and you look at what he's done.
Yeah, no, he brings on people to push the Camp of the Saints, one of the most racist books in history. The semi-literate primitive monkeys, I am still shocked that it didn't affect him at all. Like, how many people have lost jobs for nothing in comparison to that? Comments that are horrendous and offensive, but that, he is just telling you who he is. And he does it, he does it every night. I mean, this is a guy who says, he tried to pretend there at the beginning, it's not about Black lives. I wish it was. That's why I do segments all the time on white genocide in South Africa, because I care about what's going on. That's why I support economic policies that devastate the very communities I say I want to be stable and well off. It's the most shallow, fake populism, fake critical thought. He asks, one of the true marks of an idiot or a liar, because I think that he's smart enough that he's probably just lying, is to ask rhetorical questions as if you couldn't find out the answer if you wanted to. If you wanted to know what the protests were about, there are ways to do so. You could go on Twitter for 5 minutes, or you could certainly interview people, but he doesn't do that. And he trains people to ask questions like that and not seek answers. He gets credit all the time. People hand it to him over his willingness to question the dogma of the Republican Party and things like that. He doesn't do that. He trains people to be stupid, to be incurious, to think weakly and loosely and vaguely about what's going on, and to assume at all times that their position is one of moral and intellectual superiority. I mean, he's telling you, do not listen to these people. They're lying to you, and they're going to come for you. And I want to transition now to the second video, because there's actually a little bit more of that.
Chaos, you're not allowed to defend yourself. You are, in other words, and this is of course the point, wholly dependent upon them. In the future, the left envisions the only people who will have guns are people on their team. And that's exactly what defund the police really means. It means a woke militia policing our cities, enforcing Democratic Party orthodoxy. Imagine if the Diversity and Inclusion Department at Brown University had the power to arrest you. Imagine if the Black Lives Matter rioters had weapons and immunity from prosecution. That's what they're talking about. Partisan law enforcement. And partisan law enforcement, incidentally, is hardly without precedent. In fact, it's the rule in the third world. This is an attempt to bring it here.
I mean, Jordan, I don't know if you spoke. I couldn't hear. My ears are ringing from the dog whistle there. So the diversity and inclusion, I'm not going to say who would be running it, but the diversity and inclusion department at Brown is going to snatch you out of your home. Woke militias are going to walk the streets. And wink, wink, it's like the third world, but it's coming here. The third world's going to be here in the streets. BLM protesters are going to have guns. They're going to be walking the streets. We're supposed to pretend that this guy, this is David Duke level stuff. And he's got an audience of millions absorbing this every day.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a gross mischaracterization of what defunding the police would look like and what a community policing alternative, if that's what you believe, or other non-militaristic alternatives. It's just a complete mischaracterization of all of that because he wants to stoke fear. He's not about having a reasonable discussion. It's about pushing an agenda and, furthering white nationalist talking points. And, like I said, stoking fear in the viewers. This is not somebody who we should ever be giving a hand to or giving credit to because he dares to say that, like, bombing Iran is bad. This is like so often people will run to his defense like, wow, Tucker's challenging the orthodoxy of the right. Well, no. Like, if you look at, like, one of the things that he really broke from the right on was escalating tensions with Iran. Mm-hmm. And it's not because he's anti-war. It's because, like I said earlier, he sees people there as, his quote, semi-literate primitive monkeys. This is because he sees them as subhuman and not worthy of our time or effort.
Yes.
It's not about anti-interventionism. It's about he doesn't actually give about people there and doesn't even want to bother with it. That's the root of his worldview. So to give him a hand is to applaud that type of sentiment. So I hate when people say, oh, we got to give credit to Tucker, because no, as someone who's watched his show endlessly to understand who he is and what he's pushing and document it, no, not worthy of our time or applause or anything.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, and by the way, yeah, I'm glad that, he occasionally cautions Trump against some of his absolute worst impulses, but he also supported the guy knowing how militaristic Donald Trump was. So maybe a little bit less
his son was an intern in the White House.
Yeah.
And he parties with him at Mar-a-Lago. This isn't someone who is vehemently opposed to Trump. If you're partying with the president privately, you're not a bold, conscientious objector.
Yeah.
You're someone who's going to say enough on TV to get credit from both sides.
Yeah. Anyway, that's like a minute and a half of him. His shows over the past few weeks, he's always been, I think, the worst on Fox News because Sean Hannity is so obviously comically biased. Tucker Carlson does a slightly better job of hiding it, and just disgusting recently. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.